It is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. It was another Get Your Ass Kicked by Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. My training partner and I worked some interesting stuff today. It was an advancement on the Russian grip, and I've been having a lot of trouble with that one, but I think I figured out what it is that for me to understand how to do that Russian grip right, for me at least, was to do it on somebody who is a little bit bigger than me. My order of operations are off still just a little bit in that I'm not transitioning the hand over. So if I've got my left hand hooked over my opponent's right elbow, that I want to grab their right wrist with my right hand before pulling them to me and changing that grip to an underhook with the left hand. And so I was really working on doing that today, where I was leaning back with my right shoulder, leaning in with my left, and really pulling down on that elbow to expose that wrist to grab it and pull it into the right position. And I feel like I got it right maybe once, maybe twice today, where everything lined up perfectly. I still had my head right in the crook between my opponent's shoulder and their head, and really maintaining good pressure there. And then there's this weird grip that we were doing on the arm, after, because you got the arm by the wrist, where you run you run your left arm through their arm and then under yours, and then use that pressure against the bone to pull them down, and then take it over into a kind of almost like a darce, and then rotate that around to where you're in a full darce choke. Now, I was kind of skipping a step at that point, because there's a point where you've got your arm in, and it's not quite far enough in to get a darce, get the proper angle on a darce. And I think that's one of the reasons why you really want to go over your left shoulder and get it flattened out to where your elbow's on the ground, and you've got your opponent's weight on it to really sink that arm through and bring it up for that choke. And it's like a reverse rear naked choke kind of thing, where you've got your arms in a rear naked choke position, but you've got your opponent's arm and head, or neck rather, in a choking position. But yeah, I really liked that, and I think at the end of the series, I think I got that right once, maybe twice, where it really felt like it was flowing from one movement into another. And it is kind of intended to be a series, and so it's like you go for one thing, and if it doesn't work, you go for another thing, and one that immediately bounces right off the other. So the choke was that, if you couldn't get the anaconda choke, and that was the first one we were going for. If you couldn't get the anaconda choke, to bring the arm all the way through, bring your left arm all the way through, and cup it over your right bicep, and straighten that arm out really good, and then bring it up and tighten up and get that darce choke in there. And like I said, I thought that was such a neat transition. One of these days, I'm gonna have to actually employ that one. But yeah, so it was good. I'm definitely feeling like it's time to start doing some rounds. And so we got in a nice short round today, and my partner is very, very good. So I did not feel bad about getting tapped once. But it took longer than 30 seconds, and that's all I really cared about. it took longer than 30 seconds to get me the first time. Although I will say this, he did not get me any additional times after that. And at the end of the round, I was in a dominant position and was working towards a Kimura. Although I did not get it. If I had a couple more minutes, I might have had enough time to tease out that Kimura. But oh well, there's always next time. The Kimura. Don't need a gi to do a Kimura. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And we're going with Body Count. But what song? I think, I don't know. Here we go. Surviving the Game. Going old school today. First Dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Wayne Static with She. Yeah. What's really funny about that album is that I heard this in an interview with Static X. My apologies there. It's a little belch. Anyway, it was this interview during a documentary about Static X, and Wayne Static pretty much predicted their entire path, except for one thing. He said that they would break up, rejoin with different members, break up again, and do their own thing, their own albums, and then they would come back 20 years later and do like some sort of reunion thing. Well, that played out almost exactly how he said. Like they had some other disruptions in the band from that point forward, and then he did his own album, or I think he might have done more than one, but he did Pig Hammer, which was, Wayne Static Pig Hammer. Anyway, that's where that song came from. And then 20 years later, Static X got together again. Only it was the original lineup, with the exception that Wayne Static is dead, so they had to replace him. But anyway, the point being is, it was this. He predicted it. He predicted it down to a note. So it's kind of odd, especially considering how much that guy was into chemicals. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into today, I hadn't planned on this one initially, but it's kind of along what I was considering, or what tabs I had open already. And this one is kind of interesting because we've covered on this show a long time ago that MasterCard had put forward a patent for how they wanted to participate in crypto. And one of the interesting things about it to me is that they figured out the way to deal with the old issue of Lightning Network transactions, where, instead of being explicitly and solely cryptocurrencies that would be transacted, it would be an element of cryptocurrency, meaning some fraction of cryptocurrency, some fraction of fiat currency, and an identifier. This transaction can be bumbling around on any of a number of cryptocurrency networks, and it would be discernible by nodes that were set up to read MasterCard transactions as MasterCard transactions. And so, anyway, so I got this thing here. It's on CNBC.com. MasterCard expands cryptocurrency program to allow more firms to issue cards on its network. And this is authored July 20th at 9:26 a.m. EDT. And this is by Ryan Brown. So, yes, penis. Scroll. MasterCard has expanded its cryptocurrency program to make it easier for companies in the space to issue their own payment cards. The company is signed up with Wirex, that makes the London-based startup the first, quote, native cryptocurrency platform to gain principal membership. That effectively means that Wirex can now directly issue cards on MasterCard's network. Quote, the cryptocurrency market continues to mature, and MasterCard is driving it forward, creating safe and secure experiences for consumers and businesses in today's digital economy, said Raj Damodaran. Yeah, there we go. MasterCard's Executive Vice President for Digital Asset and Blockchain Products and Partnerships. Quote, our work with Wirex and the wider crypto ecosystem is accelerating innovation and empowering consumers with more choice in the way they pay. Yeah, whatever. MasterCard will also bring more cryptocurrency firms into its startup initiative, MasterCard Accelerate. Quote, legitimization of crypto. The move highlights a deeper push from one of the world's biggest financial services companies in the still nascent cryptocurrency industry. It's worth noting, though, that cryptocurrency payment cards aren't new. Last year, Coinbase launched its own card in partnership with Visa, MasterCard's main competitor. And the company recently became a Visa principal member, allowing it to introduce more features with the card and launch it in new markets. And Wirex, which was founded in 2014, also offered a Visa card prior to the MasterCard announcement. The firm's app lets people pay and sell Bitcoin, people buy and sell Bitcoin, Ether, and other cryptocurrencies, as well as traditional currencies like the US dollar and the euro. Quote, this is less a watershed moment and more part of a broader, slow, and steady legitimization of crypto as the global regulators increasingly put systems and controls in place. Simon Taylor, head of ventures at fintech consultancy firm 11FS, told CNBC, and he's full of shit. MasterCard and Visa have previously signaled their interest in the crypto sector, most notably by signing up to become members of Facebook's Libra digital currency project. But the two payment giants exited Libra last year, getting cold feet after the initiative was met with intense regulatory backlash, as we predicted it would. This is a bunch of bullshit. You know, I mean, it's cool that they're doing Wirex and shit, but this whole idea that these kind of moves, quote unquote, legitimize cryptocurrencies, no, they don't. We already knew that a centralized player like Visa or MasterCard could be a significant asset in this space. However, the whole point of cryptocurrencies is to be able to transact monetary value from one person to another without the need for such an entity. Visa and MasterCard are just trying to make a little niche for themselves, and that's cool. But the thing is that they have to do tax reporting of your income. So, I don't know to what extent they do that, though. You know, I don't know that they're actually showing the IRS your transactions on their network. But if that's the case, then they lose all, I want to say, legitimacy with regard to a payment operator, involving cryptocurrencies. When you look at what happens on the Bitcoin network as far as the transactions go, you'll see transactions going on the blockchain that are worth millions of dollars in Bitcoin that are going from unidentified wallet to unidentified wallet. That's people that have gone out of their way to hide who they are from everybody. And you do have to do a little bit of effort to do that. But it is possible, and people are doing it. And so now, if you're going to go through all the trouble of doing that, why would you involve those funds anywhere near a Wirex account? Why would you deposit any of the funds in a Wirex account? Because anybody who's savvy enough in this space will know that all these chain analysis monkeys will be able to track that back in every address that you've sent the money to. So, it's like I think that these people are going to be made to understand, and it's going to be the hard way. They think that because they're paying somebody to design their little systems, that they're going to be foolproof, they're going to be flawless, and there's not going to be any issues. They're not going to have any adversarial actors on their payment networks. And this is completely wrong. We know this in crypto. The whole reason we have the ability to maintain our own funds is so that we do not have to give them over to Wirex or over to MasterCard or over to US Bank or anybody else. Because these entities get hacked. Money gets stolen. People's intellectual property gets stolen. Anyway, this next one I got here, it's on CoinDesk.com. Banks in U.S. can now offer crypto custody services, regulator says. And this is authored on July 22nd, 2020 at 1700 UTC. And this is by Nicholas D. So, yes, penis. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is letting all nationally chartered banks in the U.S. provide custody services for cryptocurrencies. Oh my God. How are they? Why? Oh God. In a public letter dated July 22nd, Senior Deputy Comptroller and Senior Counsel Jonathan Gould wrote that any national bank can hold on to the unique cryptographic keys for a cryptocurrency wallet, clearing the way for national banks to hold digital assets for their clients. The letter marks a major development for the crypto industry. Previously, custody was the province of specialist firms such as Coinbase, which typically needed a state license, such as a trust charter, to offer the service to large investors. Now, large regulated financial companies that already provide similar safekeeping services for stock certificates and the like could enter the fray. The letter, which appears to be addressed to an unidentified bank or similar entity, notes that banks, quote, may offer more secure storage services compared to existing options, and that both consumers and investment advisors may wish to use regulated custodians to ensure they don't lose their private keys, and therefore access to their funds. Quote, providing custody for cryptocurrencies would differ in several respects from other custody activities, the letter said. It pointed to the need for digital wallets, adding that because they exist on a blockchain, there is no physical possession for cryptos. Quote, the OCC recognizes that as financial markets become increasingly technological, there will likely be increasing needs for banks and other service providers to leverage new technology and innovative ways to provide traditional services on behalf of their customers, the letter said. Banks can provide both fiduciary and non-fiduciary custodial services, the letter said. It also specified that banks entering this space, quote, should develop and implement those activities consistent with sound risk management practices and align them with the bank's overall business plans and strategies. The OCC is currently headed up by Brian Brooks, a former Coinbase executive who joined the regulator earlier this year. He's filled in as acting comptroller since the beginning of the summer and has already proposed a number of reforms that would benefit crypto companies, including a national payments charter which would let a crypto startup bypass the state-by-state approach in terms of acquiring money transmission licenses if they provide payment services. Well, that's kind of advantageous right there. Federal licensure. Although, I will say this, there is no amount of federal certification or regulation that will make somebody be honest all the time. If the incentive to simply liquidate and bail is high enough, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's a matter of incentive. Continuing on. Wednesday's letter also, quote, reaffirms the OCC's position that national banks may provide permissible banking services to any lawful business they choose, including cryptocurrency businesses, so long as they effectively manage the risks and comply with applicable law. JP Morgan Chase is one such national bank that provides banking services to crypto companies, having provided support for Gemini and Coinbase earlier this year. Like their counterparts abroad, however, banks in the U.S. have generally been skittish about serving the industry, perceiving exchanges and other startups as a reputational and compliance risk. That it is a big risk with regard to compliance, only because it's so unnecessary. You either have the funds or you don't. There's no need for regulation beyond that. It's like if you're providing the services, good. If you're absconding with people's money, bad. But there's already laws against that. You abscond with somebody else's money, and they can prove it. You're going to prison for theft. And it's just plain and simple. You defraud people. There's plenty of laws that classify what actions constitute fraud. And so, that's the thing that's most disturbing about cryptocurrencies as far as from a regulatory perspective, is that we already have plenty of laws regarding how to treat contracts between individuals, how to regard the exchange of goods, services, assets. We've already got plenty of descriptions of exactly what constitutes theft, fraud, things that actually cause damage to people. But what's more important to me anyways, this whole idea of banks holding on to your funds. What if, and heaven forbid, what if the funds that you're having a bank hold on to for you get hacked? What are the elements of recourse available to you? Is it within your expectation that you will ever be made whole in terms of crypto? And if so, to what extent are they willing to make you whole in regard to what you had? So say you had really, really early coins, that hadn't been circulated very much. There are some markets where such a thing goes at a premium. So if your coins get ganked and they were early and they were relatively clean, they hadn't been transacted around a lot, and that premium was available on those coins, are they going to give you coins of similar quality? To what extent are they willing to make you whole? And I think that's the bigger question that none of these regulators are really looking at, is that there is no FDIC that can make U.S. Bank pay you back your Bitcoin. You say you give U.S. Bank $4,500 at today's value in Bitcoin to hold on to for you. Now there isn't any entity that can make them give you, what the Bitcoin is worth at the time that it exited their custody without your authorization. So say you get hacked and somebody cleans out your $4,500 worth of Bitcoin. They get your keys somehow or another, and it's gone. Now what's U.S. Bank going to do to get your coins back? To give you your coins back? Are they going to call up the FDIC and say, yo, look, something happened and somebody broke in and they stole $4,500 worth of Bitcoin. They were relatively fresh coins. We're going to need you to give us an equivalent amount so we can pay them. You think that's going to happen? How the hell are they going to make you whole? Chances are they'll just pay you, maybe if you're lucky, at the time. They'll go with the exchange rate at the time that they pay you. But again, that's just if you're lucky. And because these are a regulated entity, if you enjoyed any kind of appreciation or whatever, it would be documented as a taxable event, and then you would have to pay on top of being nicked. And so now you're down to $3,800 worth of Bitcoin because you have to liquidate some of it so that you can pay the fucking taxes on the differential. It's a bloody mess. And so you don't have to deal with any of that crap if you're holding on to it yourself. It only enters this big question mark when you're having a third party hold on to it for you. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And got some Metallica going in the background right now. I'm feeling it's appropriate. But what song? Let me see here. What's going on? Dyer's Eve? Nah. I don't want to play that one. That's one of the very few songs that I'm not a major fan of on Injustice for All. I mean, it's like out of all the songs, there's two, maybe three that, they're good. They're better than most people's other songs, but for that particular album, they were just Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with something off of Master of Puppets by Metallica, here on Coin Metal. And that was Fear Factory with Replica. And so, as far as where we're going to go next, I did a little digging around, and I actually found the official notice of the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. And so this is a news release for July 22nd, 2020. Federally chartered banks and thrifts may provide custody services for crypto assets. Washington. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency today published a letter clarifying national banks and Federal Savings Association's authority to provide cryptocurrency custody services for customers. National and state banks and thrifts have long provided safekeeping and custody services, including for both physical objects and electronic assets. The OCC has specifically recognized the importance of digital assets and the authority for banks to provide safekeeping for such assets since 1998. In the letter published today, the OCC concludes that providing cryptocurrency custody services, including holding unique cryptographic keys associated with cryptocurrency, is a modern form of traditional bank activities related to custody services. Crypto custody services may extend beyond passively holding, quote, keys. Quote, from safe deposit boxes to virtual vaults, we must ensure banks can meet financial services needs of their customers today, said Acting Comptroller of the Currency Brian P. Brooks. Quote, the opinion clarifies that banks can continue satisfying their customers' needs for safeguarding their most valuable assets, which today, for tens of millions of Americans, includes cryptocurrencies. The OCC also recognizes that as financial markets are increasingly digitized, the need will increase for banks and other service providers to leverage new technology and innovative ways to serve their customers' needs. By doing so, banks can continue to fulfill the financial intermediation function they have historically played in providing payment, lending, and deposit services. Today's opinion applies to national banks and federal savings associations of all sizes and is consistent with a number of states which have already authorized state banks or trust companies to provide similar functions. So, to some extent, this wasn't even really authority for them to extend, but for them to make some sort of official statement on it, that's pretty cool, I guess. But my Twitter feed is like screaming that this is some major bullish signal, and I've got to say, I believe that it's as much a liability as anything. Especially for these banks, because I'm sure at some point they're looking at it in terms of this will represent some sort of asset that they can digitally verify and then utilize as an asset on another sheet to be backing something else, some other token. And I don't know, I don't think that's really positive for crypto, especially if somebody were to worm their way around and figure out how to take advantage of MasterCard's format or something like that, or replicate it. Even worse. That an adversarial actor would be able to present themselves as an active node or spoof themselves as an official node for MasterCard or Visa's network, and what kind of havoc they could be causing then. And it's really funny to me because, these entities experience all kinds of hacks and losses already. And it's like they want to ignore that shit. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just put everything in banking on computers too. In our computers, and make ourselves this big-ass target. Might as well just go outside of the building and just spray paint a big-ass target on the side of the building saying, money in here, and then people will try and hack you. But anyway, I got this other article, and I'm not sure. Yeah, we can do this one. This is on newsbtc.com. Grayscale can now offer Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash to the public, and this is by FINRA. And author was Nick Chong, and this is authored approximately 7 hours ago. But yes, penis. For investors that lack the ability or drive to deal with opening an exchange account, acquiring exposure to assets like Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and the like is difficult. Yet, on Monday, Grayscale Investments, a cryptocurrency asset manager based in New York, revealed that these barriers to entry are starting to fall. Actually, they don't really exist. If you have somebody that that's into cryptocurrencies, that already has cryptocurrencies, all you have to do is go up to them and say, hey, yo, get this $20 bill, willing to exchange it for some Litecoin. What do you think? You and your partner in commerce make your own exchange rate. Say he's willing to give you, one Litecoin for that $20 bill. I don't know what the current official exchange rate, but let's just say that's the exchange rate that you work out with him. He gives you the Litecoin, and now you can use that Litecoin on any market that uses Litecoin as money, as well as trading as an asset, so on and so forth. Anyway, continuing on. Crypto investing giant can now offer Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash to the public. In a press release shared with News BTC, Grayscale said it just received approval from FINRA to publicly list the shares of two of its funds on OTC markets, the Grayscale Litecoin Trust and Grayscale Bitcoin Cash Trust. This means that these vehicles, which were previously only accessible to accredited investors, can now be bought by retail investors with access to OTC markets. Quote, with digital currency ETFs still waiting to be approved, these listings offer retail investors exposure to the price movement of Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash through regulated investment vehicles without having to figure out how to set up wallets or convert fiat into digital currency. These are the first such crypto investment vehicles for Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash available to the public, Grayscale wrote in its release. The shares for these trusts, which will trade under the tokens or the tickers BCHG and LTCN, are expected to begin trading soon. Quote unquote soon. Grayscale closes record quarter. The latest news regarding Grayscale's cryptocurrency products comes as the firm has just closed a record quarter. The company reported in a document shared with the cryptocurrency community last week, quote, Grayscale recorded its largest quarterly inflows, $905.8 million in 2020, or in 2Q20, nearly doubled the previous quarterly high of $503.7 million in 1Q20. For the first time, inflows into Grayscale products over a 6-month period crossed the $1 billion threshold. As reported by News BTC previously, this means that the company bought an average of $57.8 million each week, or brought in that much, yeah. A majority of these inflows were directed at Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust and the firm's other flagship product, the Ethereum Trust. Seeing the recent FINRA approval, though, Grayscale's Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin funds could see an influx of investment. Investors say the influx of capital that Grayscale has registered is decisively bullish for the cryptocurrency bull case. One data analyst in the space said Bitcoin and Ethereum have reached a point where institutional inflows are needed to take things to, quote, the next level. Yeah, whatever. Quote, DeFi can rally without a ton of new money coming in, but Bitcoin/ETC, or ETH rather, are at the point where they need real institutional macro fund flows to take it to the next level. But it's hard to see Ethereum making a huge move with the Bitcoin range bound, just a different level of capital needed for that. When that rally arrives, though, it is still somewhat unknown. Yeah, I'm going to save y'all a lot of mystery here. This whole idea of institutional fund flows is all fucking bullshit. It's all bullshit. There's plenty of money on the sidelines that if it wanted into crypto, it would have bought it about 15-20% ago. You know, that there are projects now that have appreciated significantly, and that if any of these institutional investors had wanted a piece of that, they did not need a fucking derivative in order to get it. And these people, I think, are really not paying attention to the regulatory landscape and the things around it. You know, these calls to tax every trade and shit. Fuck you. I mean, if you want to experience capital flight, the likes of which you only see in China, here in the U.S., which already does happen to some extent in various ways, But if you want to see it come into crypto in a very ubiquitous and very widespread manner, you should just fucking leave it alone. And I swear, the funniest part about it to me is that these people believe that they are the ones dictating value. Still, they over-lever themselves on Bitcoin and Ethereum, thinking that those are going to be, the widely accepted coins. There's not going to be anybody using any other coins. Nobody's going to put anything on any other network other than Ethereum's network. That's not true. Just like Facebook and Twitter are not the end-all be-all of social media, Bitcoin and Ethereum are not the end-all be-all of crypto. And worse yet, these entities are not any more powerful than you or I with regard to determining what is valuable. They can put their money on it, but they can't stop the Bitcoin price or Ethereum price from sliding. They could just buy up all the supply as it's coming to market and jack the price way up. But the only people that will have the Bitcoin is them. So the attempt to get it will be shifted over to other coins that people can make money on. I mean, because it'll be like people like me and you that are selling to them for fiat in order to flip it back into an altcoin and fatten our sacks there. Because we know that price for Bitcoin isn't going to stay there forever. It's going to either continue to go up or it will come back down. And when it does, you want to be able to pick it up at a discount. Anyway, so yeah, that's my perspective on Grayscale and any of these institutional investors is, it's really cool that they are investing in this. But I don't believe that it's going to make the difference that is going to cause people to transition. And more importantly, I don't believe that they are going to be the ones that are going to be the final expression of what a custodian actually is for somebody in the crypto space. Really, if you cut it down to mining, okay, the average person is mining on just a computer, not even necessarily an ASIC, and not even necessarily at a profit at all times, but maybe 50-50, right? It's worth it. Because over the longer term, the 50% that you lost out on before will appreciate with the 50% that you did actually cash out on. Or not cash out, but appreciate in, rather. And so it's like, I think that in the longer term, we are going to see a dissolution of our current system. And the product, the expression that comes from it will be the product of how we actually decide to use this power. I think that Bitcoin, when it originally came out and people got all into mining and shit, the first couple phases of that, when it got to GPU mining, all the gamer kids that couldn't do anything that was worth a shit with their video cards that they had laying around were able to monetize that. And I think that's exactly where we're going to be heading back to with regard to mining. And there's some people out there that talk about the scaling, the quote-unquote scaling of Bitcoin in terms of network throughput. And there's this idea, and it's been bouncing around since about 2015, and it's wholly unfounded. If they were to do some real network specs and a real stress test of what exactly the network could handle, they would have found out back in like 2014, 2015, that the network was fully capable, I would say about 90% capable, of dealing with up to 4 megabyte blocks on the regular. And so, when you expand that 5 years into the future, where we're at now, it's only gotten faster everywhere. So you could probably support, I would I would be willing to speculate 8 to 16 megabytes on like 90% of the planet right now. And so when you look at the value of Bitcoin in terms of like how much it costs you to transact it, divide it by 8, divide it by 16, and of course can keep in mind that there is competition out there. If it were to become that cheap to transact Bitcoin, I believe that more people would be trying to get into it. And this is an argument that I've thought out quite a bit. The people that promulgate the idea that the Bitcoin network can only handle so much, and if the blocks got too big, that there'd be a lot of the network that get cut off. Here's where that's bullshit. China. The big boom in hash farms that popped up all over the Chinese landscape, that happened because of the price of Bitcoin as is. So like when it was at like $250 to $600, when they were first really starting to get into building these big ass hash farms, it was worth it to improve the electrical and internet infrastructure of these tiny little burgs all over the Chinese landscape because they had cheap access to electricity. So the incentive was there to mine there as opposed to a lot of other places. And people whine about the dominance of China in mining. Again, it's only because there is an incentive there. The majority of the chipsets are manufactured in China, so you don't have to ship them across the ocean to get them into your hash farm. The electricity is relatively cheap, if not free, in many places in China. So, of course, that's an incentive to mine within China, of course, but they have other disincentives, but we're not really going to get into that. But the point being that if you're looking at it from purely economic terms, where you're trying to make the most ROI for your effort, it suddenly looks appealing to set a base in China in some itty bitty fucking village. There's no real regulatory oversight there. And you can set up as you will. Nobody's really going to give you any guff as long as you're maybe giving people, some of the locals, a job or something, or spending your money within their economy. But the point being is, as soon as the incentive is right, people will invest in it. And if Bitcoin were capable of processing much larger blocks, and like I said, we're talking like 4 to 16 megabyte blocks on the regular, that's a significantly higher number of fees. And sure, maybe not all of them are going to break 10 cents. But when you're doing 8 megabytes worth of those, at the low end, you're talking about maybe 10 cents for the transaction fee, and maybe even up to $1. That's a lot of transactions, a lot of transaction fees. Certainly a lot more incentive than 1 megabyte of them. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And we haven't gotten to any Tool today at all. I think we should resolve that. Let's do that. And so, Parabola here on Coin Metal. And that was Melvin's with Embrace the Rub. Anyways, as far as what else we're going to get into today, let's see here. We got the legitimization of crypto. These fucking people don't understand. If you invent another cryptocurrency tomorrow, is it quote-unquote legitimate? I mean, it is to you. It is to everybody that's involved in it. But really, does it matter to whether or not it's legitimate according to Grayscale, or the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or FINRA? No. It doesn't make it any more legitimate. And as proof of that, and this is what I really fear with these third parties wanting to get into it, and especially the institutionals, because they've already shown they're completely incapable of running a bank without running it into the ground. None of them are. I don't care how quote-unquote solvent they are. There's always some place where they are in the hole in their operations. You know, whether it's they're having to conduct illegal activity in order to actually make a profit, in order to keep quote unquote legitimate business going in other aspects of their dealings. And so I got this thing here. It's on zdnet.com. A hacker is selling details of 142 million MGM hotel guests on the dark web. And this is authored by Caitlin Sempanow for 0 Day. Catalan, my apologies. And going by the picture alone, I'm just going to say yes, penis. And this is authored on July 14th, 2020 at 1:49 GMT. So a little bit old, but we're going to go with it anyway because it exemplifies our point. The MGM Resorts 2019 data breach is much larger than initially reported and is now believed to have impacted more than 142 million hotel guests, and not just the 10.6 million that ZDNet initially reported back in February 2020. The new finding came to light over the weekend after a hacker put up for sale the hotel's data in an ad published on the dark web cybercrime marketplace. Apparently there's a marketplace for that shit now, huh? According to the ad, the hacker is selling the details of 142,479,937 MGM hotel guests for a price just over $2,900. Wow. The hacker claims to have obtained the hotel's data after they breached Data Viper, a data leak monitoring service operated by Nightline Security. Oh my god, that's even better. Vinny Trolla, founder of Nightline Security, told ZDNet in a phone call that his company never owned a copy of the full MGM database and that the hackers are merely trying to ruin his company's reputation. MGM says it notified all impacted users. Reached out for comment on Sunday, MGM Reports issued a statement claiming they were aware of the scope of the breach. The MGM breach occurred in the summer of 2019 when a hacker gained access to one of the hotel's cloud servers and stole information on the hotel's past guests. MGM learned of this incident last year but never made the security breach public, but notified impacted customers according to local data breach notification laws. So basically they called them up and said, sorry dude, we got pwned. Your shit is out on the dark web right now. Continuing on. The security breach came to light in February of 2020 after a batch of 10.6 million MGM hotel guests' data was offered as a free download on a hacking forum. At the time, MGM admitted to suffering a security breach, but the company didn't disclose the full breadth of the intrusion, nor the duration of it. MGM Resorts was aware of the scope of this previously reported incident from last summer and has already addressed the situation, an MGM spokesperson told ZDNet in an email today, referring to the company's efforts to notify impacted users. Oh, we're gonna annotate the shit out of this one. Continuing on. An MGM spokesperson also pointed out that, quote, the vast majority of data consisted of contact information like names, postal addresses, and email addresses. That's terrible. If I got your name and your email address, I could probably get your phone number and your billing information changed. Continuing on. Financial information, ID, or social security numbers, and reservation, hotel stay details were not included, MGM said in February, which ZDNet is able to confirm after reviewing 2 different batches of MGM data. The 10.6 million user records leaked in February and a newer 20 million batch shared by the hackers on Sunday. Dates of birth and phone numbers were also included, which is how we were able to confirm the breach in the first place by contacting past hotel guests. Bigger than 142 million? You bet your ass. However, the MGM data could be even bigger than the 142 million count we have today. Irina Nestorovsky, head of research at Threat Intel from Kela, told ZDNet back in February that the MGM data had been circulating and was being sold in private hacking circles since at least July 2019. Posts on Russian-speaking hacking forums promoted the MGM data breach as containing details on more than 200 million hotel guests. I would wager it's probably even bigger than that. And I would wager that the duration of the hack persists to this day. I mean, these people do not understand. They do not understand that if there is a great enough incentive to steal it, people will find a way to steal it. Whether it's just compromising a federal agency that's already monitoring you for other purposes and then just utilize or gaining access to that information as just a happenstance instance of their job. It's just something that happens. It's like, hey, I'm bored, I'm sitting around, I'm watching these servers, everything looks kosher, but there's this exploit going on, and I could just take advantage of that and exfiltrate that data and sell it on the black market or on the dark web or whatever, and make myself some money, or convince some friends to help me out. A little bit of social engineering to add some dressing and kind of throw the scent off of myself as an inside employee. But these are just speculations on my part. That I believe, given what I've seen so far of a lot of these exploits, is that whoever pwned their systems probably still has access to them. And the reason why they're releasing the data in lots is because they're accumulating it over a duration of time. They're probably still accumulating it right now. In another 6 months, when the information is worth enough money, they'll dump another lot of it for about $10,000, and that'll be that. Then it'll be suddenly recognized that no, MGM, handing your fucking internal infrastructure off to AWS services is not a good idea. You should be hosting your own data, and you should not be gathering any of the data that you are. I mean, really, why is it necessary for you to have my email address for me to stay in one of your fucking hotel rooms? You know what you need from me? You need my credit card number and my name. That's the extent of our interaction. Or necessary interaction. You don't need to be keeping track of my details. You don't need to be keeping track of all the shit that I buy. I mean, you'll know that on your end of things because it's your cash registers and whatnot. But the point being that these companies keep a lot of data that they really shouldn't. And they do it in direct violation of our constitutional rights. I mean, even though our constitutional rights are not supposed to necessarily extend to private interactions, it is the responsibility of the government to uphold the Constitution. And where your constitutional rights are being violated as a policy of a regulated company, licensed company, that's where they need to be putting their foot down and defending them. I think they've been entirely too lax about that. They've entertained themselves with paying attention to what drugs we're buying and busting us for that shit. When this represents a far bigger threat to us. It really disturbs me because there should be a lot of focus being placed on these companies for their responsibility over how they're handling our data. More and more these hacks are getting even bigger. They're getting even more injurious on both the direct targets that are being hit and their customers, as was exemplified by the Twitter hack relatively recently, where a number of Bitcoin were stolen. Because people do not understand that there are people on Twitter that like to create pseudo accounts and then say, oh yeah, we're Coinbase and we're giving away 5,000 Bitcoin to, 3 lucky winners. Or some bullshit like that. And, there's a sucker born every minute. People refuse to listen to that adage that if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. This is a time-proven statement of reality. And so, yeah, I don't think that MGM should be hanging on to that data. It just creates a threat for them later. And I will tell you this. It's only going to be so long before companies like Marriott and MGM start getting sued by their customers for this shit. And as a matter of fact, I got this other article here, and I think we got enough time to get into it. And it's on Cointelegraph.com. This is by Samuel Hague. So yes, penis. And this is authored approximately 3 hours ago. T-Mobile sued over $8.7 million stolen in SIM swap attacks. The CEO of a crypto firm that recently settled with the SEC over its 2017 ICO is suing T-Mobile over a series of SIM swaps that resulted in a loss of $8.7 million worth of cryptocurrency. Reggie Middleton, of the chief executive of crypto company Vertisium, is suing telecommunications provider T-Mobile for allegedly enabling the theft of $8.7 million worth of crypto in a series of SIM swap attacks. According to filings published on July 22nd, Middleton was first targeted by SIM swappers during July 2017. Despite immediately reporting the incident to T-Mobile, Middleton claims to have been the victim of 4 successful SIM swaps over the rest of 2017 and further attacks during 2018 and 2019. The suit accuses T-Mobile of, quote, abjectly failed in its responsibility to protect the personal and financial information of its customers. What is a SIM swap attack? SIM swap attacks are executed by a hacker with the usually unwitting assistance of an employee of a telecommunications provider who reassigns the target's SIM card to a phone under the control of the hacker. Once the control over the SIM is secured, the attacker then attempts to gain access to sensitive accounts controlled by the victim, such as emails, online banking, and crypto wallets or exchange accounts. Middleton's suit says, quote, as a result of T-Mobile's gross negligence in protecting plaintiffs' information, its negligent hiring and supervision of T-Mobile employees who were responsible for safeguarding that information, and its violation of laws that expressly protect the information of wireless carrier customers, plaintiffs lost $8.7 million in cryptocurrency. The complaint adds that Middleton, quote, has suffered and continues to suffer severe anxiety, fear, and emotional distress relating to the reported incidents of identity theft. In November, Middleton and Veritasium settled fraud claims relating to the company's 2017 initial coin offering and paid $9.4 million to U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Telecoms firms face legal action. Lawsuits targeting telecommunications providers for allowing SIM swap attacks to transpire have increased in number over the past year, with AT&T currently facing at least 2 lawsuits from crypto investors for failing to prevent attacks. In addition to suing AT&T, BitAngel's founder and pioneering crypto investor Michael Turpin has brought a civil complaint against an 18-year-old for masterminding that attack, resulting in the loss of nearly $24 million in crypto. In June, a 20-year-old Californian was charged for his role in 28 SIM swap attacks. Yeah, that shit's only going to get worse. And the reason being is because the incentive to do so is only going to go up. And this is a threat that's not going to go away. I've said it multiple times on the show. And as long as we continue with this idea of AML and fucking KYC and know your transactions and all that other bullshit, the worse it's going to get. None of that shit is going to protect anybody. You holding on to your funds is going to be the best protection you can provide yourself with. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as our last dance is concerned, I've got a little bit over 3 minutes left. Let's see here. Here we go. 12-Foot Ninja, coming for you. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.